If you're actively seeking ways to build your mental toughness, navigate life transitions with grace, or simply find inspiration to keep moving forward, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Art of Beautiful Thinking. I am Cat and this is lovely Yvette. Today we are going to talk about a topic we think is quite interesting actually. It's called examining your rule book for life. Is it outdated or are you even aware of the rule book that you've got? Do you even know what the rules are that you play by? Have you inherited a bunch of rules that don't even serve you? And that's what we're looking at today.
And are your beliefs actually all based on the rules that you're abiding by in your life?
Yeah. Have you even considered that? Or are you just dealing with your life on a daily basis using rules from 3 generations ago that are no longer even really valid?
Yep, definitely not serving you.
Mm.
Have you experienced that in your life where you've actually been following someone else's rules?
Yeah, I have. I've experienced, I've had to go through my rules a lot and shift, and rules ultimately are your beliefs. And a lot of my rules used to be around scarcity and poverty mentality. I had a lot of that when I was young, because I mean, you might have done that too, because you grew up in that tumultuous, difficult environment as a child, and so did I. And my mum was always struggling to put food on the table and look after us kids because she had quite a lot of relationships, abusive relationships. And back then there was no such thing as child support.
No.
So, my mum, even before I was born, used to have to do a moonlight flip with the 3 kids in the night because she didn't have money for rent and had no way of, raising 3 children. Back in those days, if you had 3 kids and you were separated, you couldn't get a job. You were just a scarlet woman. So yeah, she did it really tough. And I think a lot of that, I still get anxiety around finances, even though I'm really good at manifesting finances.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, how it plays out? And how has that, so when you look at that, how has that played out in your life from when you were saying you still have an interesting relationship around money?
Yeah, I'm one of those people who will do jobs I hate just to keep the money coming in and to make my anxiety levels drop so that I'm not afraid of thinking about where the next dollar's coming in.
But then you get anxiety because you're doing something you don't want to be doing.
Yeah. So that is a dysfunctional rule that I am working through, and I'm changing that now. But look, it's something that I've always done. Because I had a tumultuous childhood and things were difficult. I didn't have the headspace. I had the brains, but I didn't have the headspace to go. And I went to college, but couldn't do a degree. I didn't have the, and that's something that people need to know. If your kids are not calm and stable in a stable home where things are emotionally and mentally okay, don't expect them to do well at school and don't expect them to do higher education. So I couldn't get a degree because my life wasn't stable enough back then. And that has been to my detriment in the, I suppose, in the employment structure that we work within. So I've always had the brains and the ability, but never had the time back then. And then in between times, I've tried to go and get an education, but then I've always gone, oh God, I've got to pay the bills. So I've always worked really hard. And I think I've worked too hard over the years, and I've held on to things too much over the years because the mindset that I was taught was it's better just to keep working, making sure that you're getting the money in, and you just got to put your personal happiness on the back burner for now because you just got to pay those bills.
So when did you come to the realization that you're playing by someone else's rule book?
A long time ago, because when I observed that behaviour in my parents, actually, a long time ago. And so I think, and this is the hard thing, isn't it, about personal growth, is that even when you are not following something that's a good blueprint, you become aware, because awareness is the first thing, self-awareness. The next step is to then go about breaking that, but you've got to do it in a way that you're still able to survive. And it's balancing that, making sure that you're balancing it. So, mum and dad bear didn't always do the best job. And I'm still a bear. But I am learning to become more of a wise grizzly that sits in the forest and allows the blessings to come.
A wise grizzly.
Rather than the desperate bear chasing after the honey.
Yeah. Or the bear lapping up the honey.
Well, I wouldn't mind being that.
But, be that bear. Fun and games, yeah. I
Hmm.
think we all, everybody has some form of rule that they're following in life, and
Yeah.
it's that recognition of going, as you said before, is this rule something that is serving me, or is it of disservice?
Mm,
And I suppose one way is to like with you recognizing around I'm forcing myself into jobs that I don't like just because I want to make sure that I have an income coming in.
mm,
And even though there's probably employment out there that you would like, but
mm.
for
Yeah.
some unknown reason you're not following through with that, you're just going, I've just got to take any job. Um, and I think that's the thing, it's getting very clear on what it is that you do want in life, understanding what your values are as
Mm,
well
mm.
and what your strengths are, and then bringing those together and looking at these rules or these beliefs that you have and going, do they align?
Yeah, and doing it in a
And
way that, is genuine for yourself as well. So I wouldn't, for example, want to go and study a degree in counselling and then go and work for, some of the government departments around the place because I don't agree with their system. So,
yeah,
I could get
because
the
it doesn't
job.
align with your values.
It
Yeah,
doesn't align with my values, and I
yeah,
think that's the beauty of actually getting older. That's one of the things we don't talk about enough, is that if you are able to go into that place of self-awareness and take a good honest look at what are the things that serve me, what are the things that don't work for me, it can be a bit of a shock, but it can also give you enormous amounts of personal growth and satisfaction once you start to align with what it is that you want.
yeah. I think
Mm.
understanding your values is really important,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
understanding the hierarchy of those values, like the
Yeah.
order in from highest to lowest,
Yeah.
and that way it really makes it, especially when if you're working for other people where your
Mm.
values don't align, because sometimes people go, look, I don't know what's going on here, I'm not quite sure, there's just animosity there, or we're just clashing, and usually it's because there's something that is out of integrity, and it's usually your values are not aligned.
Yeah.
But most people don't pick up on the fact that their value, because they may not fully understand what their values are. They may know
Mm.
the basis of their a value, but they don't know their entire value system. And I think it's really important for people to suss out what their values are
Yeah.
and what their strengths are. And as I said, align it and look at it and go, is this why these beliefs aren't working for me? And what do I need to let go of? And what do I need to keep?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because I think stopping and actually, I say that so much. It's really interesting. I think
But it
most
is
things.
interesting because the human mind is very interesting.
I think our podcast is interesting. But anyway, um,
Fascinating.
um, I think a lot of people don't actually stop. And the first thing is self awareness. A lot of people just don't actually stop and go, why do I do things like this?
Yeah.
Why do I automatically think that that is how things should be done? And I
Mm.
think I mentioned to you when I worked in crim justice, it was it was really cool. I'm going to stop saying that over and over. We had this amazing course that we would give to domestic violence offenders, and they would have to attend. It was mandatory. It was fascinating seeing the group dynamic, and well, I didn't run the courses, but getting the feedback from my guys who were shocked when they would sit down and have conversations with a whole bunch of men about the domestic violence beliefs that they held, the old
Wow.
man
Yep.
rule book,
Yep.
that's part of the training. And the trainer would literally say, okay, let's examine, the belief of I'm the main breadwinner. I'm the one that goes to work every day. She's just got to keep the house clean and tidy. Basically I own her because I'm the one bringing in all the money. Very archaic, old fashioned values,
Mm.
very old-fashioned rules, but these guys were just and you can be in the process of changing a rule, but until it's really embedded, you will default back to that
Oh,
position
yeah,
when you're
yeah,
under
because
stress
it's
and
old
pressure.
habits, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what happens is when, you're having an argument with your spouse or when you're stuck in a work situation that you're really struggling with, you default back to your old values. And I really have to push back against that a lot, as do a lot of people, because it's a constant strengthening of your mental muscles and your sort of spiritual muscles and trying to get that alignment happening. And I think over time you do slowly start to turn the ship around and you start
Mm.
to head off in the right direction. But it takes practice and it takes a bit of courage too, wouldn't you say, Eva?
Yeah, it does. It takes courage, and I think it's also a process. So there's no, you know, it's like that whole "it doesn't happen overnight" thing. It's a process, and
Yeah.
it's a constant working on yourself. And I've used the analogy of the onion before, and each layer you peel off, there's more work to do, and there's more things to peel off because
Mm.
you're talking about programming. If you're in our age group, for instance, that's, gosh, 50 years plus of programming
Yeah. Yeah.
that you need to unravel and create new neuron connections in your
Yeah.
brain as well. And
Yeah.
these things take time. The other stuff is embedded. It's been around for a while, so it's almost like you've got to nurture it in the way of getting rid of it, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
It's
get rid of it
tricky.
bit by bit by bit. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have so much control over you, and recognize it, as you said, when you are going through, say, a stressful um, period, or someone's
Mm.
triggered you, or that, and recognize that, oh, hold on, this is an old pattern that's coming up,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
need to let that pattern go. It's not helping me in any way.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And being kind to yourself, because behavior change, even when it comes from inspiration, internal inspiration, is a gradual process. And you're going to make mistakes along the way. You're going to go back to defaulting into, what it is that is your default position. You're going to panic. You're going to have scares because you're getting out of your comfort zone. And
yeah,
you've got to be kind to yourself. And the other thing you may also find is that you probably have family members or close friends that may unintentionally share the same rule book as you. And if you start challenging that rule book, they can push you back in your box quite quickly. We've discussed this before, I know.
yeah, which they will. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's
they
hard
will.
too. That's hard too. Once you start growing and changing, you can make people around you very uncomfortable. And they're the ones that love you the most. And they're the ones that can often emotionally manipulate you the best as well.
Yeah, which is why it's usually a good thing not to have those conversations with those people when you're going through your personal growth. Um, to keep it to yourself, talk to your close friends that
Yeah.
are supporting of you during that. Having a chat to family, because family are the best people to really trigger you, to push
Yeah.
those buttons.
Or
And
take
because unless you've got an exceptionally supportive family, but mostly they will trigger your buttons, and you're likely to walk away from that conversation questioning yourself and going, I need to
Yeah,
conform.
of
And the
course.
and the whole thing is, you don't need to conform. You need to be you,
That's
is what
right.
it comes down to. And being you means understanding you, and it means
Mm,
understanding what is important to you, what your values are, what your boundaries are, what it is that you want to achieve in life and
mm,
express and experience in life.
yeah.
These are all the things that are really, really about you. And when you start pursuing that, it can, you know, ra- uh, it can make some people's feathers get ruffled, and
Yes, yeah,
it's
people can
all,
get quite
you know,
offended too,
it
you know
can.
yeah, I noticed when, my husband Joe, I pushed him to go and get an autism diagnosis. I knew he had autism, I could see it, and he went and got the diagnosis and then, told his mum, "I've actually got autism," and she was like, "Oh, what? No, you haven't." He goes, "Yeah, mum, I do. I've got autism. I've been diagnosed by a PhD clinical psychologist who's an expert in,
Yeah.
diagnosing autism, and she's diagnosed me." And his mum's going, "Oh, you don't have autism," and he was like, "Did it never occur to you that it was really odd that I was very young, and whenever I could get hold of anyone, I would just corner them and talk to them nonstop about the Beatles, even when they weren't interested in the Beatles." And they were clearly trying to get away from me, and I couldn't pick up on any social cues. And I would still keep talking about the Beatles, even though they were "Get away from me." And he was like, "Oh, you were just an enthusiastic kid." He was like, "No, I was autistic."
Yeah, but that's the thing, they didn't have a label for it, and
No, no. And
and they,
I mean,
and
I don't
I
know.
yeah, yeah,
It's
they
just,
didn't have a
and
label
she was
for it.
quite offended that, he's autistic, whereas now he's embracing the fact. He's found it
That
really
is, yeah,
liberating
yeah.
to embrace the fact, "Okay, I've got autism. How does that affect me?" And it's made such a difference to his
But
world.
it's
It was really
understanding, as you
challenging.
said, he's embracing it by understanding it and going, "How does it affect me? What do I need? What do I need to do to support it? And also, what do I need to do to not use it as an excuse as
Yeah,
well?" Because
absolutely. Yeah.
that's the other thing that people can fall into is they label themselves with it, and then they go, "Oh, well, that's an excuse for me not to have to change who I am because I am autistic." And
Yeah.
it's like, well, no, you just got to become more aware of your behavioural patterns, and how you interact with people and understand why you interact that way. It's also it's the same sort of thing with when you're having a conversation with someone in general, and you're going, oh, they've got to conform to me, right? If you're having a conversation, you need to conform to each other and understand each other's cues and stuff like that. And you pick that up. Usually, you pick it up on a subconscious level, and that's the thing. When you're autistic, as you said, you don't pick up on those cues. So he has to be even more, doubly or triply aware of when he's speaking to someone and picking up on those cues.
Oh, I think
So
he's done a
yeah,
lot of intervention now. See, that's the other
yeah,
beauty. Like he's done a lot of intervention, a lot of work. So now what was really interesting is that his soft skills went through the roof. He found it
yep,
really
yep,
hard work, and was able to, because he's level 1. So that's good. It's what they used to call high functioning or Asperger's. They don't use that word anymore. So he did a lot of sessions with the clinical psychologist that was really good at this stuff. And she challenged a lot of his beliefs, interestingly. And he also had a bit of a weird rule book as well. So she sort of
there you
said, well,
go.
let's tweak things and change things. And his soft skills have just
Gone through the
exceeded
roof.
anything.
Yeah,
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 amazing, amazing. And people go, when he says, I have autism, people go, no, surely, because, they have these crazy weird stereotypes in their head anyway. And autism's very different from person to person, but it's done in the world of good. He went from being very distressed and confronted with the initial diagnosis and struggling because he would blow up and not know why.
yeah,
He was going into
yeah,
overwhelm, and then went and did it was hard work, and it is
yeah.
hard work, but then he did that self-assessment and worked with someone to help him make a change. And that's the other important thing, is you can't always fix this stuff on your own,
No,
just through
sometimes you need help.
self-reflection.
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes you
I
need
mean,
to dig in. Mm.
if I think about a rule book that I had, or even a thought process or a belief system that I carried on because of what I was told by other people as
Yeah.
well. Um, when uh, when I was very young, and my parents moved back to Australia, my first language was actually Croatian. It wasn't English. English was a second language for me. But I was very young, so I picked up on English very, very quickly when we came back. But I spoke fluent Croatian. My
It's
Croatian
awesome.
now is not that great because I don't speak it
Mm.
that often.
Yeah.
But but fascinating was that because of that, I was told that I wasn't very good at English, and that
Oh.
I needed to have English as a second language class specifically for me. This all happened because I stood up. I was asked by the principal. He looked up. Our teacher was sick, and he came in to take our class. And
Uh-huh.
I was asked by the principal to read out loud to people. And I was
Okay.
nervous. It was the first time I'd actually read out loud to anybody, so I was really, really
Yeah.
nervous. And I stuttered my words a bit and had issues with getting that out, and then was told that I needed to go do ESL classes, and that just made me feel like I was really silly, and I was told that I
Yeah.
wasn't very smart, because of
Oh,
that.
God. That's the
So I
worst thing to
carried
hear,
this
God.
belief in my head that I wasn't very smart
Mm.
for most of my life, even though I was constantly proving to myself from doing, different
Yeah.
certifications, different degrees, all these different things to prove to myself that I was smart. But the
Oh.
thing that was actually playing out there as well was that it had nothing to do with that I had English, that English was my second language, because by then I wasn't speaking much Croatian anyway, so you might as well say English was my first language. But also, I have a form of dyslexia, and
Oh,
that form
okay.
of dyslexia is I can see words, and I have no problems with reading, but what I have is the ability to translate it from my mind to vocalize it, and I can struggle with that vocalization,
Ah, that's
and
difficult.
I
Okay.
can get words muddled up and things like that.
Yeah,
So I
right.
I can mean one thing, but something else totally comes out of my mouth, right? And
Oh,
I figured this out over time, and then it was like I needed to basically start creating methods for myself to work with
mm,
this. So I came up with my own tools and figuring out how to do
wow.
this, because my parents wouldn't accept the fact that that was what was going on, that I had a learning disability. Yeah.
Oh, yep, yep.
Um, so I just had to basically work with it. So I didn't accept other people's rule books that at first I did. I was kind of going, okay, I'm silly, I'm silly, I'm silly. And then when I realized that, no, I'm actually not silly. I'm actually quite
Mm,
intelligent. I just can't
mm,
vocalize myself clearly at
mm.
times or articulate myself exceptionally well at times. And it's funny because people now would say, well, actually, but you do articulate quite well. But it's taken a
Huh.
lot
Yeah,
of um, self-work, self-work, like, working on self and understanding that I have this, but accepting that and not
yeah.
putting it down, not kind of looking at it going, it's an issue, because it's not
Mm,
an issue. It's only an issue if I turn it into an issue. So for me, and do I look at it as a strength? Well, it means that I have to push myself a little bit harder in certain things.
mm.
Um, so I can articulate myself
Yep,
well. And I find that I may have to slow because I used to be a very fast talker, and that didn't help
yeah,
either because you're
yep.
trying to get everything out. So I had to slow my pace down
Yeah.
and
Can't you train your
so
delivery?
yeah, exactly,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And so that has been absolutely fascinating, and realizing that I was buying into other people's beliefs about me. Like
Yeah, and
that I was stupid,
that's
not very smart. And
yeah,
also because back then as well, there was a lot of racism that went on, regardless of even the fact that, I was blonde, blue-eyed and white, but I
yeah.
was Slavic.
You're a
And
wog.
so, yeah, I was a wog, and that's how
Yeah,
people used to treat me as such. I used
yep.
to get called salami breath and all sorts of things. So that used to play out a bit as well, but because I was European and a wog and all that type of thing, that I was treated as if I was stupid when
Yeah,
I was.
I got dirty pom and stinky soap dodger and, stupid pommy. I got that as a kid as well. It's, quite incredible how badly, yeah, how racist it was coming to
Yeah,
Australia
yeah,
as an
and it is.
immigrant.
It was quite racist, and that you could hold on to that too and go, well, not only am I silly because I've got a learning disability, I'm also silly because I'm actually from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, but we all know that's a load of
It's
crap,
it's it's
so
it's fascinating, and so you can either
mm,
buy into that and
yeah.
allow it to rule and dictate your life, or you can choose to basically unpack it and go, that's not true, and I choose not to take that on.
So what actually works to change your rule book then? It sounds to me the first thing that works is to go, I'm gonna question this what I'm being told or what I'm thinking around this thing. And what would trigger that? This is not working. When I act this way, I'm not getting the result I want.
Well, as a kid, I just started reading a lot and just practicing reading. That's what I was doing. I just read,
Yeah.
read, 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 read. And it was funny. Even with writing, I started doing running writing a lot earlier, like cursive, a lot earlier. And then I got in trouble from my
Mm.
teacher because I was
Really?
ahead of the class and doing cursive. So I was told to stop
Crazy.
and that I had to go back to normal printing. Um, so it was, but I kept practicing with that, the cursive
Mm.
writing, the reading, and just doing it in my own time because it was almost like I wanted to prove them wrong
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
was a kid. That I
Yep.
am I am smart. I'm not. You're just not paying attention to me.
That's
So
really good that
yeah,
you have that. That's like a real outlier mindset. I'm not going to get pushed around. I'm not going to because at uni you study and people say there's a bell curve, and when kids are brought into certain environments, the predictors are that they'll probably not do so well because they've got all of these intersectional issues that go against them. But you're saying I was mindful to myself, and I said no because I was the same. I was like, well, "Fuck you! You think I'm going to
yeah.
fail? Watch me." Yeah.
Well, it was an upward struggle because it didn't matter. They still perceived me in a certain way. It didn't matter what I did. I just had to make sure that I didn't perceive myself in that way. And sometimes I would fall back on the "I'm not smart, I'm not this," because
Mm,
one of the other elements was for me was whenever there was an exam. I was so nervous going into the exam. So a combination of a
mm,
little bit of that
mm.
anxiety that pops up with examinations, but also because of the dyslexia, I just all of a sudden I just could not at all
Yeah, because 'cause you'd be freaking
take
out.
on what was required of me. Like I'd look at it and I'd read
Mm,
it 4 or 5 times, and it just wouldn't sink in,
all that
even though
stuff out.
I'd know
Mm,
the answers. you know,
Mm, mm.
and I
And
just could not
would you
bring the answers out.
would you struggle to write, because you said you struggle to convert your thoughts into speech. Would you struggle to actually put your pen on the paper and put those thoughts into writing whilst you were doing exams, or was that just because you were so anxious?
Yeah, probably a
Yeah.
combination.
Mm.
Combination, and so when you had the 2 together, it was just like, yeah,
Disaster. And
yeah,
that would reinforce that, that continual narrative, "Well, you're not real smart," you
yeah,
know?
exactly right, when all I needed was probably a little bit of guidance and assistance to
Or someone to identify
how to
that,
do that.
yeah,
Hmm?
you had a mild a form of dyslexia like we do now, thank goodness. Well, it's
Yeah,
not perfect, it's a lot better. And, okay, well, you don't learn the same way as other people.
no.
Let's learn in a way that works for you.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference with today's schooling. There's a lot more support for people that, do learn differently.
Absolutely,
As
absolutely, and
in
that's
when, when I was at school, there wasn't. There was just one way of learning, and
yeah.
if you didn't actually learn that way, well, you were considered to be stupid.
Yeah, that's right. And I grew up in exact same environment, and the same with the workplace. You've just got to be able to get along and do well in office environments, or you know, um, do you go to work, do you commute, all that kind of stuff. That stuff I find just totally stagnating. Even when I get along and have fantastic people, it's just not for me. And it
Yeah,
does take you a long time to know. Again, getting to know yourself, your rule books and things, and I think examining those unhelpful beliefs that you've inherited from people around you, or your family members, or in your friend groups, whatever it is, we osmosize, we soak it up by osmosis all the time, don't we, around us?
we
So
do. We do.
become like the top 5 people that you associate with the most, and what you consume when you're reading, or online content, whatever you're looking at, whatever you're consuming on a regular basis, really becomes part of you. You integrate that as part of your beliefs, your mindset, and your personality. Mm.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck with what I call, and this is a bit blunt, but yeah, it's me. Um, don't get stuck with nice dickheads. That's another
Nice kids. Woo,
nice
yeah.
dickheads.
Okay.
Nice dickheads are people that you look at and you think, you are really nice. What a nice person. I do like you. You're lovely. You've got a lovely, way about you, and you're a genuinely good hearted person, but you are a dickhead. And your advice is terrible, and you're not doing real well in life. And I look at
Oh.
you and I think, oh, no, I don't want to be like you, but I really
Yeah.
like you as a human being. So
I
I'm not
just
going
don't need
to,
to take your advice, that's all.
when I do better and do things, please don't be that dickhead and go, no, what are you doing? You're trying to make us all look bad. No, I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm just trying to live my life. And you can either lift up and come along, or you can stay being a dickhead.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just some people will do that, and you've also got the society rules as a whole as well. What society, well, and it's a thing because are society rules in concrete? No, it's
They
just stuff
change.
that people say. Oh, this is how you're meant to behave. This is in this particular situation, and I
Mm,
suppose if you go back to, the uber wealthy in different time periods. Like I keep thinking of the Victorian era, and I don't know why. It's probably because there's so many shows on
social
TV at the moment
etiquette.
with the
Yeah.
with Victoria. Yeah, so it was all about society, and you had to behave a certain way in society, and you
Yeah.
could never ever truly be yourself. You had
No.
to portray yourself as a different thing and abide by these rules, and
Yes.
that still plays out today. But I
Yes.
think perhaps the younger generation is not doing it as much, but then they're coming up with their own set of rules, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting. And this is something, I mean, again, none of us do this perfectly. I've had to examine my rule book as a parent, because I've got a challenging 17-year-old who's incredibly intelligent and very independent, because I've brought them up to be that way. And I'm so proud of them for being that way, but they can also be really annoying, challenging mum all the time, and they'll sit down and have a logical argument with me and say things like, well, I don't agree. That's your rules. Those aren't my rules. And I'm like,
Yeah.
on the one hand, I look at you and I think, oh my God. Ugh. Anyway, and on the other hand, I think, well, kudos to you for choosing who you want to be, and I'm never going to try and stop that. I could certainly see there'd be ways you could go about things and avoid a lot of mistakes that you're going to come up against, but then maybe that's part of your journey.
Mm.
But
I
it's
remember
hard to do
having
that.
Yeah, I remember having conversations with my parents about, I don't even know exactly what they were about, but we used to have this conversation, well, probably at least once a week. and, and it was usually along the lines of my parents telling me not to do something,
Yeah,
um, because I'd make a mistake or I'll get hurt or whatever. And my response was always, this is my life. I need to figure it out for myself. If I don't make my own mistakes, I'm never going to learn.
and that's true. It's just very hard
Yeah,
to watch
it's just
as
yeah,
a
it is
as a
hard to watch
parent.
as I suppose as a parent, but I never got in trouble. This is the thing, I never got myself in
Well,
trouble because I had my head screwed on
yeah.
pretty well. So and I never did
Sometimes kids
anything
surprise
stupid.
you. Sometimes
Sorry?
your kids will surprise you as well
Yeah,
because they've sat back and thought about this
yeah,
and gone, "Actually, I'm not doing it your way. I've found a better way." And I think that's a humbling moment as a parent to go, "Righto, well, I trust you, go and do it." And then
yeah,
they do it and you're like, "Holy shit, that was awesome."
yeah.
You know?
Because isn't that what it's all about? Like, as a parent, or even I look at it because I'm not a parent, but I have mentored people,
Yeah,
and it's about letting them be bigger and better than you.
absolutely.
Giving
I'm
them
100%
the
on that one.
space to be able to do that and encouragement to do that, not
Yeah.
holding them back. That I think I see that as probably how to help people grow and how to support people. Don't hold them back, support them.
Yeah.
If they fall, help them get back up,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Give them all the tools and also, be there to and actually I think as kids grow older, you become more of a you sort of aren't there holding them by their shoulders going, "It's gonna be okay." You kind of back away and you're there like going, "Okay, if you fall, I'm gonna catch you. But, and I'm over here if you want it. Yeah, okay, no, you're doing well. That's fine." It's so funny. I took my youngest to enroll into high school today, and, at the end of it, the principal handed me the big form and said, "Okay, that's for you to fill out, Mum." And I went, "No, it isn't. That's for you to fill out, Ruby. If you have any problems, talk to me, and then I will sign it at the end." And he just looked at me and went like that. And I went, "They can do their own paperwork. They don't need Mummy to do it all." But I think that's a European thing. I think we're a bit more, come on, you can just get on and do it. Like, go and catch the train to London and go shopping and then come
Yeah,
home when.
well, you're taught to be independent. You had no
Yeah.
choice.
No, and I mean, yeah, that's how it sort of it is very different, isn't it? It's a very different, I think American styles of things and Australian style, wherever you go, it is quite different. There's a different culture. But
Yeah.
anyway, back to rules. We're getting off track. Yeah,
Yeah,
rules.
but that's another rule. I mean, that's the thing. There's all these different rules, and it really is about, as we go back to it, looking at the rules that are being put on you and figuring out whether these rules are of service or aren't of service. And how do you
Do they
figure that
suit
out?
me?
How
Well,
do you
well,
how do you acknowledge that?
how do you do that? What are my values? Am I in life now currently? Am I really happy with where I'm at? Or are there some things I'd like to change in my life? And how would I like that to look? And dare I? Because the other thing that rules do is they can also provide a bit of a prison.
Mm.
Dare I step outside the rules, or dare I allow my mind and my spirit to dream outside the rules of what society thinks is appropriate for me, and instead go, "Well, this is what I want actually." And that's a big one because the rules will often pull you back and go, "No, you can't do that. No one's allowed to do that. You've
Yeah,
got to do this."
yeah,
Well, why do you
yeah.
think you're good enough to do that? So rules can be a prison. If rules are causing you to default to bad behaviors or they're making you dysfunctional in your life, because everyone's different, right? Everyone's made up of bazillions of rules and values, and everyone, like you've said before, everyone's priority of those is different. But the more you get to know what you are like, what your basic stuff is, who you are, and what I suppose the raw materials are that you're working with.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives you an idea, and then it's all coming back to how do I feel about certain things? What is my life doing? It requires a lot of questioning of what's going on in your life, and
So
you will only
self-reflection.
yeah,
Yeah.
self-reflection, and you'll only come to that
Mm.
if there's a problem usually, isn't it? I mean, most people that are
Well,
blissful
yeah, most
will.
people self-reflect when it's a problem, but if you can self-reflect every day, my big suggestion is at the end of your day when you're getting, when you're in bed, ready to go to sleep, do your gratitude stuff, but also do a little bit of self-reflection on your day. What
Mm,
could you have done differently during the day? What
yep,
what did you do really well?
yep.
What areas could you improve upon? Is it like, was there a conversation that you had that you think that could have gone better? How would you
Yeah.
make that better the next time? Those types of things. But you're looking at it from a whole holistic perspective, not just pointing out, not just looking for the bad, but you're looking at what worked really well.
Yeah. What did I do
Right?
that was really
Yeah.
good?
What did
Yeah.
I do that was really good? And then what can I do to improve? And what will I do differently tomorrow?
Mm, mm. And if you set yourself on that path of constantly learning, it is challenging, but it's also very exciting.
It is. It is. Personal growth is great.
Yeah, it's
I
the
don't
answer.
think I don't think people realize the impact it can have.
Even when it's small
Right.
changes, even when it's
Yeah.
small
Well,
changes too.
it only really has to be a small change to have massive results.
Mm, mm.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but spend that time. Actually, on that, the other thing that we're building too is a bit of a community on
Mm,
Facebook. So
mm.
we would encourage people to have a bit of a look at that too, because sometimes you may not find like-minded people in your circle of friends who wish to discuss these concepts or are interested in looking at this stuff. So you can sneak onto the Facebook page and have a bit of a chat and see what people are discussing. Sometimes that helps as well. If you want to throw things out there or ask questions, that's also a good thing to do, I think.
It is. So that's the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast page. You'll find us there.
Mm,
Yeah,
mm.
I think that's it, isn't it? You've got to really surround yourself with not just like-minded people, but people who are going to support you. You also want to be
Mm,
challenged as well by certain people. People who are going to say, "Is that the right thinking for you?" And I'm
yeah.
not talking about people telling you that your thinking is wrong, but
Mm-mm.
people recognizing that perhaps that particular type of thinking is causing a disservice for you. It's
Yeah,
something that
yeah.
anybody that's working with you, like a coach or a counselor or what have you, may be able to pick up. But it's surrounding yourself with people who are going to ask you those tough questions as well.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I wanna tell a story. I don't know if I've told this story of a guy that I worked with that was, I think I mentioned he was drinking and everyone said he was a lost cause and he was fighting with his father-in-law and fighting with his wife. There was all this domestic violence stuff going on, and he had this awful rule book that he'd inherited from his father. Once initially dealing with him was like trying to work with an angry chihuahua that was trying to bite my arm off. He
Gosh.
was tiny. This is always what happens because I'm a 6 foot tall woman, so I always get to work with really tiny little men because it's the best for all of us. Anyway, so, initially he was like, "Oh, you big intimidating bitch," and I sat down as quickly as possible, and we pretty quickly started a decent rapport. He was very angry and very wound up, and after a while, I realized he was highly fearful and very anxious.
Mm,
Really reminded me of a chihuahua that was terrified.
mm.
Anyway, we got to working together for a while in probation, and um his rule book was, "I've had children with this woman, therefore I must stay." Even though, uh, our relationship is absolutely in the toilet, the children are unhappy, she's unhappy, we've gotten to the point where all we do now is just basically needle each other, get drunk, and then it blows up into a full-on fight, and then her father gets involved, and then I fight him, like, just this never-ending cycle, and he was so frustrated, he was in tears. He said, "How the fuck do I break out of this?" I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, I can't leave. I can't leave her. I've got 2 children with this woman, and we don't leave." I said, "What do you mean we don't leave?" I said, "Who taught you that?" He goes, "My dad." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My dad stuck with my mum all the way through and they never left each other even though they hated each other's guts." And I said, "Oh, okay. What was your childhood like?" And his childhood was absolutely shit. It was horrendous.
Mm.
His parents were awful and he grew up in this pressure cooker. And he had adopted this rule that a man doesn't leave his kids. That's what his dad would always say, "A man doesn't leave his kids." And that was what he was pushing himself to do, was to stay there. Do you know, within 6 months of I gave him permission to break a rule. I said,
Sometimes
"You've
that's all
altered
you
my life."
need. That's all you
Yeah.
need is to be
He
given
changed his
permission.
whole life.
Yeah,
Changed his whole life within 6 months.
yeah,
His biggest fear was not being able to have any kind of relationship with those kids because he said,
yeah.
"She'll keep them from me." And I said, "There's ways and means. You've always been a good dad. You can offer to do the right thing, put it all in writing and say, I'd love to share the children and go and get you." He went and got himself a house. He got a job. He cut his drinking right down and he got really fit. He started feeling great about his life. And then he was paying child support, doing all the right things. And although initially she was very angry that he'd gone, um, in time, his whole life was just completely different. And all that was, he was holding on there because I said, the next time you do this, you're going to jail. He was holding in there because that rule that he'd inherited from his dad was a man doesn't leave his children,
Yeah.
regardless of the circumstances. It doesn't matter. But that rule doesn't always work.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many rules, especially around men about, you know, real men don't cry and
Oh,
all of that type. It's just we are all emotional beings. We all need to release our emotion in a good way, and when we hold on to it, it comes out in a bad way. So,
yeah.
it's like yeah, there's just some stuff that it is not of any form of service whatsoever to even humanity as a whole. You just kind of go, how is this helping humanity?
Yeah,
It's
that's right.
not.
And
Yeah.
some rules are making you do a shit ton more extra work in your mind, in your life, in your relationships. And those rules are just like they're draining you.
Mm.
They're draining you dry and it's not worth it. And actually, releasing some really unhelpful rules can be such an incredible relief.
Oh, could you imagine? It'd be like a weight being lifted off your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we don't have to know all the answers. So, because the
They'll
rules
come.
don't know all the answers either.
No, they'll come. Answers will come. You just got to recognize it and
Yeah.
see what you need. You know, that, as you said, that one little bit of change can make a massive impact in your life. So
Yeah.
what is it that you could let go of today that would have a really different impact on your life in a good way?
And also, what rule is it that keeps popping up in conversations? That's a good way to start as well. Like, I
Mm.
know my husband and I have spoken about some rules that he's inherited, and we've had really honest conversations around this stuff. And I'm like, that's that bloody idea that's popped up again. Let's examine that. He's like, no, I don't want to. I'm like, well, we're going to. And then he's gone, oh, yeah, okay. I can see, yeah, that actually doesn't help. And then about 2 weeks later, he's come back and said, I've had this really good idea. I think that this doesn't serve me anymore. I go,
Well done, sir.
fabulous. Well done.
Fabulous.
Oh, God, if he watches his podcast, he's going to tell me off.
And he probably will.
Anyway.
Love it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, so rules are sometimes quite honestly made to be broken.
They are.
Not always worth it, the old rules, are they? Just not
No,
always worth it.
definitely something to evaluate and reevaluate constantly, I think.
Yeah,
Like, how are these things playing out? Are they of service? If they're not, out the window. If they are, keep going forward.
correct. Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they functional? And be flexible and be resilient. Like, there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with changing your mind.
No.
There's nothing wrong with going, actually, I've done it this way for 20 years, examining that rule and going, oh, yeah, no, I can see that that doesn't work and I'm going to change my
Yeah.
mind. You're
Yeah.
allowed to do that.
We are evolving beings. We are meant to evolve. We are meant to grow. We're not meant to stagnate. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We've spoken about that before, haven't we?
Yeah, oh God, I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
stagnating, stuff that. I'm just over it. Now, I just wanted to give a little shout out to the beautiful Gabby, who has had a bit of a listen to some of the podcasts, and she just gave us a little bit of feedback. So I thought it'd be really nice. Gabby from Umami, she knows who she is, and let her know that I really appreciate the comments that she sent through, and I might just read those out if that's all right with you, Eva.
Yeah, go for it. I'd love to hear them.
Look, I've just started at the start and I love it. Mirroring. I've done this before and it's such a hard thing to do, but genuinely works. Also, love the starting with 10 minutes a day. So there's no pressure and you can fit it in until you build confidence in yourself. We don't need to be doing 60 to 9 minutes of exercise a day. Do something achievable. And I love the one about living in boxes. Loving that you're sharing little gems. It's an easy way to start a new habit. I won't always have time to be listening to huge podcasts, but I can do a couple of short ones. It's so attainable. And I'm going for a walk tomorrow and listen to your podcast. Thank you, Gabs.
Fabulous. Thank you, Gab. That's fab.
I hope you get something out of it. So that's really good. That was lovely, actually, to get that feedback.
That was really, really nice. Yeah. And we do have some other reviews. So I'll share one next week when we're actually doing our next one and see how we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the reviews. They're great because it really shows to us that our audience is actually getting some really great
Engaging.
gems from what we're speaking about from our lived experiences and also our professional experiences. And And that's what we're here to do. We're here to light the spark in people because we
Yep.
really want to see you achieve the results in your life that are going to
Mm,
be beneficial to you and really light you up, and
yeah, definitely.
that's what it's about.
Make life a
So
bit easier. Yep.
yeah, exactly. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to us today. Um, if you've got any feedback, please put it into our comments below. Subscribe. We would love to have you as part of our community and join our
Mm.
Facebook community group as well, as we mentioned earlier on. And remember to think brilliantly and no, I said it wrong. Think beautifully and live brilliantly. See, I'm
Oh,
always doing that. See, that's
it's all
the
good.
muddling of the words.
Doesn't matter. It's all good.
I love it. See, I'm only human.
Aren't we all?
All right. On that note, guys, take care. We'll speak later.
Bye.
We'd like to say a huge thank you to our incredible audience for your continued support. Our mission is to ignite your spark, empowering you to be a beacon of light for others. We'd love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions that you would like answered in future episodes or just want to share some insights, connect with us on our Facebook community page. If you're looking for additional resources, go to our website. You'll find the link below. And remember, the absolute best way to help us grow is to share this episode with your friends and family and to subscribe to the Art of Beautiful Thinking podcast. So until next time, think beautifully and live brilliantly.